Hello, everyone. The topic for today's discussion is occurrence of disease. Here we will study about the occurrence of disease, the classification of disease on the basis of the frequency of its occurrence, and few other related terms. Okay, so let's start. See, disease occurrence is reported by incidence and prevalence. So what is it? Let's just change the ink color. Disease occurrence is reported by two things. What is it? Disease occurrence is reported by incidence. Incidence and prevalence. Okay, what is incidence? Let's see what is incidence. Incidence is the number of people contracting the disease, number of people or individual contracting, that means getting affected by, contracting the disease in a given period of time. Okay, next we come to prevalence. Okay, now what is prevalence? It is the number of total cases. Okay, it is the number of total cases at a particular time regardless of when they developed. Regardless of when they developed. It is not concerned with when the disease has actually developed, but it is only concerned with the number of cases at a particular time. The total number of cases at a particular time. Okay. As I'm writing, please note these down in your notebooks so that you get it handy at the time of revision. So next, we talk about the classification of disease on the basis of the frequency of occurrence. Okay. If you write diseases are classified by frequency of occurrence. Okay, how is it happening? See, first is sporadic. What is sporadic? It occurs occasionally. It's not occurring every time. Okay, sporadic diseases occurs, or sporadic disease occurs occasionally. An example is, I'm putting the example in the bracket, typhoid fever in US. Okay, This is an example of sporadic disease. Second, what do we have? Endemic. What is endemic? It is constantly present in a population. It doesn't go away. Constantly present in a population. Next, what do you have? Epidemic. What is epidemic? Epidemic, here for endemic, we can write common cold. Very popular example. Every time you see someone or the other has contracted the virus. Common cold. Okay. And what is epidemic? Many cases are reported in a given area in a short period of time. Many cases reported in a given area in a short period of time. All right. So, can you recall any example? Can you connect to any example? Influenza, a very popular one. All right. And last, what do we have? Pandemic. In this era, who is not acquainted with this word? COVID-19 pandemic has made us extremely familiar with this word. So what is pandemic? It's a worldwide epidemic. It's a worldwide epidemic that affects many people all around the globe. The most famous examples of recent time is COVID-19. Isn't it? Others, you can also say AIDS might also be considered as a pandemic. This can also be considered as a pandemic. Okay. The entire world gets affected. Now we have scope of disease. Okay. The scope of disease can be defined as, see, okay. The scope of disease can be defined as the following. See, acute, a disease can be acute, then it can be chronic, and it can be subacute. All right. Now, what is acute? Acute is it develops rapidly but lasts for a short time. Develops rapidly and lasts for a short time. Example, influenza. Influenza doesn't last for ages and ages. Okay. Next is chronic. What is chronic? You have heard of this word, right? Chronic disease is that, okay? What is it? Develops more slowly. Develops more slowly. Reactions to the disease are less severe. Reactions to the disease are less severe and likely to be continued or recurrent for long period. Okay, keep this in mind. Likely to be continued or recurrent for long periods. Recurrent for long periods. All right. Like example, you can say tuberculosis, hepatitis B, or infectious mononucleosis. Okay. So till here, I hope it is clear. And last we have subacute. This one, subacute is just an intermediate between acute and chronic. You can just write it here, intermediate between acute and chronic. All right. Next, we have disease cycle. Here will require some other colors. Let's change the color. Let's not make it monotonous. We'll talk about disease cycle. Okay. What is disease cycle? Cycle means what? It starts from some point and it again comes back to that point. This is called a cycle. Okay. Now, in disease cycle, what do we see here? We have inoculum. This is often the infective propagule that starts the disease cycle, or else the disease cycle starts with this. This inoculum gives rise to the infection or disease. Okay. Then we have dissemination and infection. Dissemination and infection. All right. Pathogen, again. All right. This is our disease cycle. This is how our disease cycle look. Concept is basically very simple. The inoculum gets disseminated and it spreads infection. Then the pathogen again produces inoculum in the body where it propagates or multiply and grow and live. All right. Plant disease epidemics are cyclical phenomenon, that is, they consist of repeated cycles of pathogen development in relation to the host and environment. Okay. The inoculum gains entry into the host and establishment within the host tissue through the process of infection is very, very common. So it is gaining its entry into the host and it establishes itself within the host through the process of infection. The pathogen develops within the host and eventually begins to produce new inoculum, which in turn can be dispersed to new susceptible sites to initiate new infection. All right. Pathogens that produce only one cycle of development, that is one infection cycle per crop cycle, are called monocyclic, while pathogens that produce more than one infection, okay, per crop cycle are called polycyclic. So you will have to keep these terms in mind, okay, in order to make our memory a little stronger. Let's write. Have the habit of writing. This helps you in remembering. So what did I say? Plant disease epidemics. Okay. These are what? These are cyclical phenomenon. Cyclical. This is what I was just telling. See, it's a cyclic phenomenon. Okay. The cycle is being repeated constantly. So what is happening? At the inoculum, okay, inoculum gains entry in the host. Okay. After this, what is happening? Establishment of this microorganism takes place within the host. I'm just writing establishment within the host. Okay. This is actually the process of infection. Fine. From there, the pathogen develops within the host and eventually begins to produce new inoculum. So here what is happening? Production of new inoculum. Fine. Then you see, this in turn gets dispersed to new susceptible sites. Okay. Dispersed to new susceptible sites. All right. What is the result of this? Dispersed to new susceptible sites. It goes to the new susceptible sites and it initiates new infection and initiate new infection. This is what happens. All right. Another term we had just used, what is it? Pathogens that produce only one cycle of development. Okay. pathogens that produce only one cycle of development. That is what? That is one infection cycle. That is one infection cycle per crop cycle. That is one infection cycle per crop cycle is called what? Monocyclic. One cycle, mono means what? One. Monocyclic. And those that produce more than one infection cycle, this is what? More than one infection cycle. What is that called? Polycyclic. Okay. So this was our brief discussion on the various terms related to occurrence of disease. In the next lecture, we will be talking about individual pathogens. Okay, thank you so much for attending the lecture. Stay connected. Till then, goodbye.